Welcome to Independence Day. The movie starts with a massive alien mothership which parks itself just outside Earth, like it's waiting for valet. It also transmits a signal that is picked up all around the world. Also, humanity doesn't want to believe it at first, as they just can't comprehend the size and just in general that there are aliens right in front of us. The first few minutes of the movie are basically to introduce us to the main characters. We got the president, David, his father, Russell, who is an alcoholic, his son, and probably a few more that I don't remember. So the parked mothership immediately becomes everyone's problem again, because it starts deploying city-sized saucers over major population centers. So now we get introduced to Captain Hiller, who I forgot to mention before, but whoopsies. He and his wife didn't notice anything while the giant thingy was flying over them. He only notices the big thing while getting the paper from outside, and he also wasn't questioning why his neighbors were all packing their stuff. Because nothing says holiday weekend like an extinction event. Captain Steve Hiller gets called back from leave to rejoin his fighter squadron, which means the military is already preparing for the situation they clearly do not understand. And since giant alien discs covering over Los Angeles tend to ruin the vibe, Jasmine decides to get out of the city with her son, because staying put feels like trusting a ceiling that's actively cracking. Meanwhile, Russell Cass sees the aliens and immediately takes this as confirmation that his life has not been a series of poor decisions, which is the kind of validation that arrives about 10 years too late to be useful. Something that is maybe good to mention is that Russell told everyone years ago that he was once abducted by those aliens, but nobody believed him. At the same time, David starts digging into global satellite signals because when something weird happens, the one guy who owns a computer suddenly becomes essential. He finds the hidden transmitter and realizes it's a countdown, which means the aliens didn't just show up, they scheduled something and it's not going to be a friendly introduction. He's also the only one that somehow figures out that they're probably not here to just cast a shadow over those cities. He references chess, which is a nice analogy. Nonetheless, he also somehow knows, or he analyzes, that a signal is disappearing in roughly 6 hours, and then it's game over. Right here, the president tends to the people, telling them to evacuate the cities and try to do that calmly. But calmly was never an option when it comes to aliens. So naturally, David drags his dad straight to the White House because his wife works there. And also, when you discover the end of the world is on a timer, you skip customer service and go directly to management. The president listens and orders evacuation of the White House and, well, as before, of major cities, which would be a solid plan if the aliens hadn't already beaten them to the concept of timing. People are also very stupid. In some cities they were having a party right under the middle of those thingies. Now, because the countdown hits 0 and every saucer fires the beam that wipes out entire cities in seconds, like someone decided Earth needed fewer landmarks and acted immediately. I'm looking at that and it's just really bizarre. Imagine being the one standing there watching those buildings explode. You just know it's over. Nothing you can do. I get that people are running, the human has a survival instinct, but this is crazy. The Air Force One barely escaped the president and a handful of survivors, which turns the most powerful office in the world into a flying backup plan. Back in Los Angeles, Jasmine, the dog, and her son survive by hiding in a side room of a car tunnel, because when the sky starts deleting buildings, the best strategy is to become structurally irrelevant. With most major cities gone, the military launches a counterattack, because when something destroys half the planet, the only available response is to throw the other half at it. That plan immediately collapses when the alien ship reveals force fields, which means every missile and bullet just politely acknowledges the target before doing absolutely nothing. Because brute force isn't working, the aliens escalate by deploying their own fighters, which start tearing through human squadrons and bases like they're cleaning out outdated software. Hiller gets caught in the middle of this, and decides the best option is to drag one of the alien fighters into the Grand Canyon, which is less a strategy and more a very convenient guess. He ejects mid-chase and uses his parachute to blind the alien pilot, causing it to crash, which is the kind of maneuver that only works if the other guy has never seen fabric before. Since the alien survives the crash, Hiller knocks it out and drags it through the desert, because at this point, capturing one feels like the only way to get answers that don't involve explosions. He flags down a convoy of refugees and gets transported to Area 51, which turns out to be less of a conspiracy theory and more of a delayed reveal. Once there, the government finally admits they've been sitting on alien evidence since 1947. Which means humanity has technically been unprepared on purpose this entire time. They even have a recovered alien ship and preserved bodies, which suggests the only thing more advanced than the aliens is the government's ability to keep secrets while doing nothing useful with them. Which is probably the most realistic part of the entire movie so far. Since they finally have a live alien, the scientists decide to examine it, because nothing says controlled environment like poking the one thing that just helped destroy multiple cities. That decision immediately backfires when the alien wakes up and hijacks Dr. Oaken, like he's a rental body, using him to talk to the president, which turns first contact into a very aggressive meeting. It also launches a psychic attack on the president. Because of that connection, the president gets a direct look into the alien's mindset and realizes their entire plan is to wipe out humanity and take the planet's resources, which reframes the situation from invasion to scheduled eviction. The alien is quickly killed, which solves the immediate problem, but leaves everyone with a much larger issue, knowing exactly how doomed they are. With no better option, the president authorizes a nuclear strike on one of the ships, because when conventional weapons fail, the next step is to try something that usually ends wars, by ending everything else. Because if there's a problem, words don't fix, we just launch nukes at it until it goes away. That plan failed just as cleanly as the first one. since the alien shields are still up and absorb the blast without effort, confirming that humanity is currently fighting at a level somewhere below relevant. Because the strike happens over Houston, the city gets destroyed anyway, which turns their last big move into something that's mostly harms themselves. So naturally, they abort any future nuclear attempts because repeating that outcome would be a slower version of losing. Meanwhile, on the ground, Jasmine is still moving through the aftermath and manages to rescue survivors, including the badly injured First Lady, which turns her escape plan into an emergency transport service. Hiller eventually finds them. I could question how exactly he knew where she was, but that's probably in a filmed scene that was never published. And he brings everyone back to Area 51, because at this point, all surviving storylines are being funneled into the same place, like it's the last functioning checkpoint. The First Lady reunites with the President, but dies from her injuries shortly after, which gives the situation a personal cost, just in case global destruction wasn't already making the point. But we all know personal feelings make a story more impactful. Because every direct attack has failed, the drunk David comes up with a different approach and decides to upload a computer virus into the alien system, which assumes that an interstellar civilization somehow left itself open to basic IT problems. I mean, who wouldn't think of that? An alien civilization traveling through space, something we can't even dream of. And somehow they can program a virus on technology of the 1990s for them. It's a truly mesmerizing moment, which means the mech which was used in the movie was better than the alien technology. That's strong marketing for Apple. So this plan is based on the massive idea that the mothership is controlling all of those smaller ones individually. So by hacking the big one, the smaller ones are hacked too, which is very far-fetched. Since their plan requires getting inside the mothership, Hiller volunteers to pilot the captured alien craft carrying a nuclear weapon. Because if you're going to try something impossible, you might as well stack it with something explosive. And because this only works if everyone attacks at once, the military starts coordinating a global counter-offensive using Morse code. Which means humanity's best shot at survival is now running on technology older than the problem. I could now be petty and say that the Morse code isn't actually saying anything, but that would mean that I actually have to care about that, which I don't. So that creates another issue. There aren't enough trained pilots left, so the President and General Gray start recruiting anyone who can fly, lowering the qualifications to somewhere between experienced and has landed once. And this is how Russell Cass ended up volunteering, because the same guy no one believed in earlier is now considered a viable option, mostly due to the complete lack of alternatives. Right before all of this, Hiller and Jasmine decide to get married, because when the world is about to end, long-term planning becomes extremely short-term. Better late than never, am I right? At the same time, David and Constance reconcile, which ties up their situation just in time for them to immediately risk their life together. Like, emotional closure is now part of the mission's briefing. With the plan set, Hiller and David take the captured alien ship and head straight into the mothership, which only works because the aliens apparently don't expect anyone to reuse their own equipment against them, and they apparently don't check for any missing equipment. Once inside, David uploads the virus, which finally disables the alien shields, proving that the most advanced invasion force in the universe can be taken down by what is essentially a very aggressive email attachment. Because the shields are down, Hiller arms the nuclear missile and prepares to launch it, which turns the infiltration mission into a very close-range demolition job. The missile detonates inside the mothership, destroying it from within, which removes the alien's central command and turns the entire invasion into a disconnected mess. They barely escape the explosion, because even a perfect plan still needs a last-second exit that almost doesn't happen, because movies need the drama. Movie science! With the shields gone everywhere, human forces immediately go on the offensive, since the one thing stopping them from being effective has finally been removed. The President personally leads a squadron against a saucer targeting Area 51, because at this point the job description has expanded to include direct participation in dogfights. The pilots quickly run out of ammunition, which brings them right back to the original problem, facing something they can actually finish off. While they are fighting in the air, Area 51 is under heavy attack, and they bring all the civilians into the facility. So Russell steps in and flies his jet straight into the alien weapon, sacrificing himself, which is both a final act of redemption and the only remaining solution that doesn't involve running out of time. The collision destroys the saucer, proving that if the technology gap is too large, we can always close it manually. You know, the way they destroyed the thingy, it would have easily crushed Area 51, trapping everyone in there, but luckily it drifts far enough away that it doesn't do nothing. Because they now know the weakness, the military broadcasts information worldwide, turning one victory into a usable strategy. Other countries replicate the attack and take down the remaining ships, which collapses the invasion entirely, now that the advantage is gone. Humanity celebrates, because surviving an extinction event tends to improve the mood. Hiller and David are rescued and reunited with their families, closing everything out on the one thing that didn't get destroyed. The people who made it through, which is surprising that even that many people survived, but we will not question it anymore. And the next movie might somehow escalate even harder, because somehow, after all that, humanity survives an alien invasion, which is great, because now we are immediately getting invaded again, just this time the aliens turn into cars. Yay! Well, yeah, that wraps up that awfully long movie. Hope you enjoyed and let me know what movie you want to see in the future. Alright, that's it for now. If you like this disaster of a recap, feel free to click some buttons, or don't. I'm not your dad, so that YouTube knows that my videos are worth watching. Thanks again, and see you in the next one.